for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. I don't know how some of you sleep at night.
Supreme Court hearing today arguments on affirmative action in college admissions.
And there are 4 people running the whole store, and there's so many customers, and there's possibly scheduled 5 people.
A lot going on today. I don't know if that last video is actually real. We'll have a poll at the end of this. Also, the Covidians are asking for forgiveness and COVID amnesty in a big piece in The Atlantic that we'll talk about. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments yesterday for the affirmative action or the removal of affirmative action. What do we think about that? All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
An introductor completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is November 1st, the first day of November of the year 2022. Got a lot for you today, and I think this is kind of an interesting kind of unfolding of how divergent things are going to be going. If you haven't seen this Atlantic piece, an article in The Atlantic from yesterday, strap in, folks, because this is going to be a little bit of a wild ride here. The Atlantic put out a piece yesterday basically calling for the amnesty for what people did in COVID. There's this big, long piece. I tried to pick as much out of it as possible that was kind of going in the same direction. I don't know if you know anything about Atlantic pieces or The Atlantic in general. They are Moby Dick long. Like they are, wow, that's gonna be a clip that I'm gonna regret later. They are as long as Moby Dick. A very long name. Get your head out of the gutter, you children. Very long time, very long book. So bottom line here is Atlantic pieces are very, very long. So I tried to pick out what was interesting about those. But the bottom line here is that the Atlantic put out this big, long story about forgiving people for what they did during COVID because not a lot of people knew what they were doing. I have some exception to take with that. Let me start reading from this thing because I think this is interesting, and I'd love to hear you in the comment section what you think about this piece, again, in the Atlantic. Already some of the comments flowing in because my stupid analogy with the longest book that I know of. Anyways, this is from The Atlantic. The precautions were totally misguided. In April 2020, no one got the coronavirus from passing someone else while hiking. Outdoor transmission was vanishingly rare. Our cloth masks made out of old bandanas wouldn't have done anything anyway. But here's the thing. We didn't know. First things first, all of those things are correct. Outdoor transmission still is very, very rare. Cloth masks don't do dang near anything, and you weren't going to get it from passing somebody on a hike, even though there were several people that I know and love who would pull up their mask while they were walking to not spread the coronavirus to anybody else. But the bottom line here, and what they're trying to articulate in this article is, we didn't know. Fine. That's fair. In March of 2020, saying we didn't know is fair. In June, July, August, September of 2020, gets a pretty hard argument to make. And in all of 2021, when they were pushing vaccines and all those sorts of things, that gets even increasingly more difficult to make the case of we didn't know. Look, I'll give it to you. In March, April of 2020, yeah, we didn't know anything. But we started to know a lot relatively quickly when you talk about the scope and the span of this virus. We started to know pretty quickly, and a lot of people didn't know for way longer than I think the rest of the world would have liked. The Atlantic piece continues. I have been reflecting on this lack of knowledge thanks to a class I'm co-teaching at Brown University on COVID. She's been learning a lot from a class that she's teaching. Interesting. We've spent several lectures reviling our first year in the pandemic, discussing the many important choices we had to make under the conditions of tumultuous uncertainty. Some of those choices turned out to be better than others. To take an example of my own work, there was an emerging, if not universal, consensus that schools in the U.S. were closed for too long. Correct! Correctamundo! And if she goes on to say that we didn't know, I will say BS. The fall of 2020, schools should have been wide open. Now, maybe they still had some implementations for distancing outside, all that sort of stuff, but the whole virtual learning crap didn't work and is going to have a disastrous effect on these students for the coming generations. So I'm curious to see what she says here. The health risk of in-school spread was relatively low, whereas the cost to students' well-being and educational progress were high. Thank you for admitting that. The last figures on learning loss are alarming, but in spring and summer of 2020, we only had a few glimmers of information. Reasonable people who cared about children and teachers advocated on both sides of the reopening debate. Okay, here's the thing. If we were only talking about the summer of 2020, that would be one thing. But we're talking about well into 2021. And I think the last school year, the fall of 2021, the start, there were still schools doing remote learning. So again, while I have some sympathy for people who are saying, well, you know, we didn't know anything spring of 2020, summer of 2020. Okay, fine, that's fair. But it went on for a year longer than when you were claiming here. So I don't know if she's being disingenuous or just kind of ambiguous or aloof of what was happening. Another example, when the vaccines came out, we lacked definitive data on the relative effectiveness of the Johnson & Johnson shot versus the mRNA options from Pfizer and Moderna. The mRNA vaccines won out, but at the time, people in the public health were either neutral or expressed a J&J preference. This misstep wasn't nefarious. It was a result of uncertainty. There was a lot of certainty being spread around at the time, and it would have been great. And here's what I think I'm getting at over all of this. It would have been great if people expressed uncertainty. If you're claiming now that we were all uncertain at the time, it would have been great to know that, because I have a clip that we're going to play for you right now of how very, very certain a lot of people were and how very, very certain they made it sound that XYZ was going to happen, and XYZ definitely did this, and vaccines did this, and restrictions did this, and shutdowns did this. There was a lot of certainty at the time. So when you talk about, well, you know, there was a lot of uncertainty at the time, and we didn't know. Fine, say that. Don't claim to be definitively certain of one thing or another, especially when it comes out looking like this. Watch this clip. It's a compilation I found from a guy, you'll see his little emblem in the corner, who put together a compilation of people saying all of the things very, very definitively that they're claiming amnesty for now. Also, by the way, if you haven't already, before I play this clip, would really appreciate you clicking the little like button that's down here in this corner, or the little share button and the little share button. Really, really helps us out. Continue doing what we're doing each and every day. Or let us know in the comments section. Will it be easy for you to, quote unquote, forgive and forget all of the Covidians and their wretched policies? I don't know. Let us know in the comment section what you think while we watch this. Let me pour through some of these and see if we can bring them on. Check it out.
If you're willing to walk among us unvaccinated, you are an enemy.
What goes through your mind when you hear a lot of the anti-vaccine rhetoric?
At this point, it seems criminal to me.
Vaccine free and impacting the rest of us. It's like drunk drivers.
You got to identify those people and bring them out into the open, so you know who they are.
Ich kann sagen, also, sie sind wirklich zu prügeln, sind diese Menschen.
Ja, also
und dann passiert
people who are not vaccinated away from those who are, given that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, then the safer we will be.
Gyms, hairdressers, but why not supermarkets? Why not public transport?
But don't think you can get on a plane or a train beside vaccinated people and put them at risk.
We are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated.
Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated.
And we all need to remember that getting vaccinated keeps everyone in BC safe and stops the spread of COVID-19.
With these vaccines, we can extinguish this virus once and for all.
And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. I don't know how some of you sleep at night who are doing this for a living on television.
New York City employees who were fired for not getting vaccinated against COVID-19 should get their jobs back and receive back pay. That ruling tonight from a judge on Staten Island.
Pulse check of Australia as we exit the pandemic, and it writes, more than half of respondents either said they regret getting vaccinated or were unvaccinated and happy with their decision. Only 35% said they were vaccinated and would make the same decision again.
Miss Atlantic Peace writer here. Why did that freeze there? There we go. The bottom line here is, and this article goes on and on and on, we can continue to read it, but the bottom line is that they're talking about, well, it was all uncertainty. So forgive people who said things about things that they didn't know about. Yeah, the problem is how definitively you said them. If there is uncertainty among really anything, and I think I do a pretty good job on this show of not knowing specifics or definitives other than broad-based ideas, but if you don't know for certain, don't say something for certain and then demonize people who don't agree with your certainty in an uncertain argument. I forgot about that Justin Trudeau clip that said, if people who are unvaccinated think they're going to get on a bus, a train, or public transport and put the rest of the people at risk, they have another thing coming. And especially since, 2 weeks ago, we had that clip out of the UN some minister in the UN asked Pfizer, hey, did you guys test to see if this stops the spread? And they were like, no, we didn't test that at all. Okay, that's fine. Again, all of that's fine. Then why did so many people echo the fact that they didn't? Why did so many people echo the fact that the vaccines stopped spreading? I don't know. So, I don't know. Let me know in the comment section. Do you forgive/forget all of this stuff that happened during that? Nicholas says, when will Fauci be prosecuted? I don't know about prosecuted, but I guarantee you he's going to be hauled in front of Congress when the Republicans take back the Senate. Alexandra says CCP must pay. Yeah, that's a huge point that I feel like gets missed a lot. Vanity Fair had a really interesting article. You can go find that if you want. We're not going to talk about it here. Reiterating what everybody already knows and can be assumed, that the lab leak theory is the prevailing theory. Now, again, there's no way to definitively determine that, but pretty much everybody agrees at this point. Yeah, this thing leaked out of a lab in China. James said, I tried reading that piece yesterday, got bored. Sarah says, never forgive tyrants. Yeah, that's, I think, the sentiment of a lot of people. Frederick says, a lot of people are still brainwashed. Brian says, remember when they came out with triple masking? Yeah, I do. And Gloria says, never forget. So all of that is, I don't know, it's going to be an interesting thing to see, especially over the next couple of years. There was somebody had a meme that said, hey, remember when we took away your jobs, your businesses, your livelihoods, kept your kids out of school and treated you terribly for the last 2 years? Vote for us again, because we believe that we can fix it this time. So there is that. I want to, before we drag on this too long, I want to get to this. And then also, after we talk about this, because this is actually important, I want to talk about this Starbucks thing. The Starbucks, if you haven't seen the Starbucks video, Sebastian Gorka tweeted it out the other day. It's unbelievable, especially if you work a job that requires you to do actual work for more than 8 hours. You'll be shocked. And I actually don't know if this is real or not. Anyways, yesterday, the Supreme Court of the United States heard oral arguments for doing away with affirmative action. If you don't know what affirmative action is, it is being able to use the race or skin color of somebody in order to give them sort of preferential treatment when it comes to college admissions, but also among many other things. Now, the Civil Rights Act of 1967 pretty much explicitly bars any sort of racial discrimination, except for some reason, on college universities. Harvard and a school in North Carolina, was it North Carolina University? I'm not entirely sure, brought some arguments to the Supreme Court that made it all the way to the Supreme Court, saying, hey, this whole admissions thing where we can just say, well, this person had a lower GPA, did less extracurricular activities, not as great of a student, but they were a part of a minority, and therefore we can skew the standards just a little bit for them. That's what's on the table here. I thought this was interesting from the New York Times. Now, the New York Times is an interesting thing. I know I talk about the New York Times quite a bit. Donald Trump says the failing New York Times. In which ways he's correct in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I read the New York Times because if they have something interesting and an interesting point, it's good to see what the mainstream lefties are looking at, especially when reading quote unquote news articles at the New York Times. This is again from the NYT. Supreme Court seems ready to throw out race-based college admissions. Good. I'm pro that. The court's conservative majority was wary of plans at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, because the University of North Carolina, and take account for race to foster, quote unquote, educational diversity. This is what I freaking love Clarence Thomas. This is what happened. The Supreme Court Monday appeared ready to rule that race-conscious admissions programs at Harvard and University of North Carolina are unlawful based on questionings over 5 hours of vigorous and sometimes testy arguments, a move that would overrule decades of precedents. Now, the decades of precedents, we'll talk about the Supreme Court. They have a little piece on the Supreme Court, and we can kind of get into that whole jumbled mess over there in a little bit. The Supreme Court Monday, yada, 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 yada. Such a decision would jeopardize the affirmative action at colleges and universities around the nation, specifically elite institutions, decreasing the representation of Black and Latino students and bolstering the number of white and Asian ones. We'll talk about that in a second. This is where I love Clarence Thomas. Questioning members of the court, the 6 justices of the conservative majority were sharp and skeptical. Clarence Thomas said this: "I've heard the word diversity quite a few times. I don't have a clue what it means. It seems to mean everything for everyone." And that, geez, we're having some earpiece issues here. That's why I love Clarence Thomas. He says, what does diversity mean? Are you talking about amount of pigment in somebody's skin? That's dumb. Why don't you go diversity based on, I don't know, background or interests of study? Or there's so many other things that you can quantify as diversity, but for some reason we look at how much pigment you have in your skin when you're born, which is dumb. Some people like music. Other people want to study engineering. Other people want to study medicine. That's a diverse population right there. But if you have a white kid, an Asian kid, and a Black kid, and a Hispanic kid all studying one thing, I would guarantee you that the diversity in that group is much less than the diversity amongst all the different other areas of expertise. But we'll dive into that a lot right now. Justice Alito asked a similar question, asking what the term underrepresented minority means. What does that even mean? He asked the college admissions. He added, college admission is a zero-sum game in which granting advantages to one group necessarily disadvantages another group, in which is not allowed, especially when you talk about civil rights. But overall, I want to get to this clip. This is a clip from Ketanji Brown Jackson in which I thought this was fascinating. Not necessarily in making a good argument or a good case for something, but in saying that this would be passable as a cohesive argument for affirmative action. I want you to listen to what she says. This is a decently, I don't know, it's kind of long, but again, it's fascinating to take a look at what some people think matters versus what actually matters, or at least in my opinion, what matters. Listen to this. This is the new Supreme Court Justice. Also, if you haven't already, would appreciate you clicking the little like button and the little share button, or letting us know in the comment section what you think about quote unquote affirmative action and diversity. Watch this clip from Ketanji Brown Jackson and we will discuss after.
Who would like to have their family backgrounds credited in this applications process, and I'm hoping to get your reaction to this hypothetical. The first applicant says, I'm from North Carolina. My family has been in this area for generations, since before the Civil War, and I would like you to know that I will be the 5th generation to graduate from the University of North Carolina. I now have that opportunity to do that, and given my family background, it's important to me that I get to attend this university. I want to honor my family's legacy by going to this school. The second applicant says, I'm from North Carolina. My family's been in this area for generations, since before the Civil War, but they were slaves and never had a chance to attend this venerable institution. As an African American, I now have that opportunity, and given my family background, it's important to me to attend this university. I want to honor my family legacy by going to this school. Now, as I understand your no race conscious admissions rule, these two applicants would have a dramatically different opportunity to tell their family stories and to have them count. The first applicant would be able to have his family background considered and valued by the institution as a part of its consideration of whether or not to admit him, while the second one wouldn't be able to, because his story is in many ways bound up with his race and with the race of his ancestors. So I want to know, based on how your rule would likely play out in scenarios like that, why excluding consideration of race in a situation in which the person is not saying that his race is something that has impacted him in a negative way. He just wants to have it honored, just like the other person has their personal background, family story honored. Why is telling him no not an equal protection violation?
Okay, so I know that was a little bit long, but I thought it was fascinating. Just to quickly recap, in case you just jumped in, because I saw the numbers spike up and then a little bit. Ketanji Brown Jackson laid out two different points of, well, imagine this hypothetical. Student A and student B talking about race and slavery and all this sort of stuff. Okay, cool. Here's the question that I have for the Supreme Court Justice. Why does either one matter? He's talking about, well, one student can use his family lineage to say, I've been a fifth generation of North Carolina University. And the other student says, well, my family has lived in this region for a very long time and they were slaves and this is not. What is their GPA? How is this not the only thing that we look at? Now there's lots of room to quibble when you talk about how GPA is calculated and grades in different jurisdictions and different schools and different areas and SAT scores and ACT scores and all that sort of stuff. Fine. But when we're talking about admission into a school that is going to teach you a skill to use for the rest of your life, why does either family background matter? The one kid that says, well, I would be the fifth generation North Carolina graduate, so I should be admitted into this school. Okay, what's your GPA? What'd you get on your ACT? What'd you get on your SAT? And the other student says, well, I was a product of slavery and I've been here in a long time and fine. What's your GPA? What'd you get on the ACT? What's your SAT score? Why does any of that stuff actually matter? That's my question, but apparently when you look at people in the lens and in the way that Ketanji Brown Jackson looks at people and things and how things should function, that matters. And that, in my opinion, is the fundamental difference between a lot of people. I care only about merit and nothing else. Can you do the job well? Can you succeed in this school? Or can you not? Those should be the only two things that should, not two things. Can you succeed in this school? That's the only thing that should matter when it comes to admissions into a college. And for getting a job, can you do the job? And this whole diversity thing makes me so mad. Karen says, merit, not melanin. Yeah, that's a good point. Clinton says affirmative action is past its deadline, needs to go away. Agree. Kimberly says affirmative action equals racist. Everyone's equal in God's eyes. Yeah, I would agree with that too. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting just way of thinking. If you want to get really into this is Thomas Sowell. If you don't know his work, you should. He's very, very good. He has this book called Conflict of Visions, in which he kind of lays out how people come to different determinations. And it's fascinating, but at the baseline, we're not necessarily talking about whether or not Ketanji Brown Jackson's her argument, well, if this is this case here and this is the case here, then how do you differentiate those two cases? And what I would say is, well, we're not. We're throwing both of those cases out. Let's just not even look at that sort of stuff, and let's only look at the merit of the student and the potential of that student based on the field that he or she wants to study. That doesn't seem all that difficult to do. On to lighter fare. We'll see if I think we're gonna we're not gonna hear about that ruling until like June, so we'll put a pin in that for right now, and get to something funnier-ish, I guess. Let me know in the comment section. I'm curious. Do you have a job? Do you work at a place? Have you ever had a job or worked at a place? I would imagine there's several people watching on this stream that are retired. I have had a job. I still have a job. Plenty of jobs. All throughout college, I was a janitor. And then I graduated and went and managed a Target for a hot second, about a year. And, have had to work hard to do a lot of the things that I'd like to do. Now, I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that's a fact of human life. You have to work hard in order to live. This is a video that was tweeted by Sebastian Gorka outlining some of the mentalities that people have around working. I, honest to God, do not know if this is real. I've watched it 3 or 4 times, and I can tell you definitively that I have no idea if this is a real person with real grievances that they're really trying to display in this video, or it is a parody video because nothing in the real world could be this ridiculous. I don't know. I would love to hear you in the comment section. What do you think of this? It's like 2 minutes long. We'll probably stop in a couple different places and gather some comments. But I am fascinated to figure out if this is a real, genuine reaction to being understaffed at a place that you work. Watch this. If you haven't already, would appreciate you clicking the little like button and the little share button. Would really appreciate you doing that. Helps us out quite a bit. Anyways, let me know.
People wonder why we need a union at Starbucks, and I am literally about to quit. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I really want to. I almost walked out today, and I'm crying in the back room right now, and I almost cried on the floor. It's just, I'm like a full-time student. I get scheduled for 25 hours a week, and then on weekends they schedule me the entire day, open to close. I'm on the schedule for 8.5 hours, both Saturday and Sunday. I'm 3.5 hours into my shift. There's so many customers, and we have 4 people on the floor all day. Only 5 people were put on the schedule, and somebody had to call out. And there are 4 people running the whole store, and there's so many customers, and there's Buzzley scheduled 5 people. We only have 13 people employed at this store, and there's so many customers. We don't have fair scheduling. Managers don't care about us. Our manager was supposed to come in this weekend, and he took himself off the schedule, so he wouldn't be able to be held accountable for calls.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead on that part because that's it. Comment section. What do we think? Is this real? I can't tell. Who, if it is, who puts this on the internet? Who in their right mind films themselves crying in the back room of a job that they have to go to for a full day of work? Oh no. Talking about there's too many customers at the place that I work, which my only job is to help the customers. I don't know. Is this actually real? I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because there's some other stuff. She talks about the manager a little bit, or shoot, this is the other problem. I'm going to continue playing this on, and then you'll get what I'm talking about.
Because there's so many mobile orders, and I need to get through all of them, and then people are yelling at me because I don't have their orders ready, and they don't know what to do. And a customer was misgendering me today, really badly. I didn't have their order ready, and so they were just talking to each other, and they're like, she's clearly incompetent. I have a full mustache and beard. What the fuck? I don't get accommodations for being neurodivergent. I don't. I can't use. People get mad at me for using my sick time. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm at my wit's end with this job. I really am. I just want to be able to.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? In the comment section, there's a lot of people. Honey Val said, I used to work 12-hour shifts. What a baby. Shifra? Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sorry if I'm not. Says, it's real. People today are very soft. Yeah. Barbara says, suck it up, Buttercup. Penny says, yes, it's real. Nobody wants to work. There's a subreddit called, is it anti-work? I think it's anti-work, where there's a bunch of people online, like 1 million people here, that just refuse to work. I don't understand how they live. Kimberly says, you have to be joking. I worked 2 jobs and moved A's in high school. Yeah. That seems to be the case. Clint says this generation has no idea how to work. Jeff says, I haven't worked less than a 10 to 12-hour day in years. This can't be real. That's my thought, dude, right? Like, I have a different job nowadays. I don't do much physical labor, but you want to talk about travel time and production time and all the stuff that I've got to do now? Like, holy cow, yeah, we're talking probably around 12 hours on average every single day, and I'm fine doing it. But the fact that there's other people out there that are complaining about an 8.5-hour shift on the weekend, oh no. I don't know how much sympathy I have for some people. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are in the comment section saying, yeah, baby, whining. And I think the only definitive agreement that was with me was Jeff saying, yeah, this can't be real. Like, I guess, I don't know. But such is the modern generation not wanting to work, and therefore not wanting to pay taxes, and therefore not wanting to pay Social Security, and therefore Social Security is going to collapse. That's a different story. I wanted to get to the immigration stuff because there's a great piece in the New York Times from the editorial section that maybe we'll get to a little bit later tomorrow about how everybody agrees on the whole border security thing. Like literally everybody, even the op-ed section in the New York Times said, yeah, we agree on this whole the border's out of control thing. But we'll get to that tomorrow. Maybe we'll see. Wow, no love on the comment section for this particular Starbucks individual worker who I guess was misgendered too. I don't even know. I don't even want to get into that thing. Anyways, that'll do it for us. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB. The Instagram went back up. I don't know, like people lost like 1,000 followers yesterday when Instagram got hacked. But I guess it's like now back up and running and doing well. So there's that. Also, Jobob Unlimited is a show that we stream. I don't know if we're going to do one today. This week is a busy week travel-wise. So maybe we'll do one today. Maybe we'll do one tomorrow. We'll see. But I'm in Florida, then it doesn't matter. But you can follow me on Facebook, and you can see that show that streams live various afternoons. One of these days, we're going to get a hard schedule. I'm thinking like after the turn of the year, it'll be easier to like, all right, here's what the schedule is, because right now the travel schedule is going nuts and bananas. So there's that. We're also into November. That means what? November tour dates. We're going to be in Kentucky November 16th and November 17th, doing stand-up shows at Moorhead College and Western Kentucky University. So if you live in any of those areas, would love to see you out at those. You can get in touch with me and I can tell you how to get free tickets to those. And yeah, maybe we'll see you on the road. But thanks so much for tuning in, sticking around. It's been a haphazard last couple of days. We tend to start the show later and later every single morning, and I apologize for that. Working on it. We are working hard on not doing that. But if you stick around the entire time, appreciate you doing so. We will see you same time, same place tomorrow. God bless America.